So far, 2017 has gotten off to a really slow start when it comes to new MMORPG releases. I'm sure a lot of you feel like there's not much to look forward to at the moment, but hopefully with this video, I can give you some insight into a new upcoming MMO that I'm personally really excited for, Ashes of Creation. Ashes of Creation is a brand new open world MMORPG that's being developed in Unreal Engine 4, and if you haven't noticed already, it looks visually amazing. The game's set in high fantasy in a civilization untouched for thousands of years, and aims to provide content for fans of both PvP and PvE. Something many of you will be glad to hear is that this game is being worked on by a Western team of developers known as Intrepid Studios, a team made up of industry vets that have worked on titles such as EverQuest, PlanetSide 2 and Star Wars Galaxies. Let's start by talking about one of the most unique aspects of Ashes of Creation, its node system. So the world in this game is basically split into zones. Each zone has a node associated with it. A node is a location in the world that can be built up as players do things such as quest, gather and kill monsters in that zone. For example, when the game starts out, each node will be level 0. As players participate in activities in that zone, the node will gain experience, eventually becoming a level 1 node. Upon doing so, a camp will appear at that node and unlock new content for that zone. At level 4, a node becomes a town, level 5 it becomes a city, and at level 6 a metropolis. Every time a node levels up, the world reacts to it by offering new content to the player, such as dungeons, world bosses, aggressive monsters attacking the civilization, and new quests. Where this becomes interesting is that only a limited amount of nodes can be worked on and built up at any given time. This creates player conflict, with some players seeking the destruction of high-level nodes so that others can be worked on to unlock new content, perhaps in an area in which they've already invested resources. If you can't tell already, Ashes of Creation aims to be a very player-driven game in which no two servers will ever be the same. What I like about this system is that the players decide how the world's built. We're not waiting for the developers to release content, instead we're figuring out ways to gain access to the locked content by doing things such as forming alliances to destroy high-level nodes to free up some room for further growth and development. The world is ever changing. Trading will be something that's very important to city development, and Ashes of Creation has a first of its kind system that creates an aspect of risk versus reward when it comes to the movement of resources. One of the fundamental things preventing players from just manually transporting goods is the weight limit. You can't hold thousands of pieces of ore in your inventory like other MMOs, so instead you need to transport those goods between nodes via the game's caravan system. The reason you'd want to do this is that maybe you want to further process your goods as a crafter, and there's no facility at your current node that allows you to do so, or maybe you're a merchant that wants to sell those goods at a city or town. Either way, the caravan system is core to how goods are transported. So how does it work? As a player, you'd pay a caravan to transport your goods from one node to another. Upon doing so, a number of NPC guards will spawn to escort the caravan. The number of guards that spawn will depend on the level of the node you're transporting from. Upon spawning, players near the caravan will receive 3 different options: either help defend and escort the caravan for a reward once it reaches its destination, ignore the caravan, or attack it in hopes of creating a wreckage that only attacking players will be able to loot. This system basically creates dynamic mobile PvP zones, as well as adding value to the resources being transported. Crafting is another really big aspect to Ashes of Creation and is referred to in-game as your artisan class. There's 3 different paths you can take: gathering, processing and crafting. Down each of these paths you'll have access to professions related to that path. So if for example you wanted to do something like animal husbandry or farming, you'd need to take the gathering path. If you wanted to do cooking or alchemy, you'd take the processing path. The way this system is designed is that players can't master every single artisan class. You can choose to be a jack of all trades and learn a bit of everything, or you can put all of your chips into one path and become a true master artisan. When it comes to the leveling in Ashes, it seems like a game that's going to give you a lot of freedom and have somewhat of a sandbox feel. When your character's created, they'll spawn into the world via one of the 4 great portals. The portal you spawn in from depends on the race you choose. 2 races share each portal, which means the game will have a total of 8 races to choose from. The game will not, however, be faction based like World of Warcraft, for example. From the limited information we have so far, you can get experience experience and level up through multiple different avenues such as exploration, quests, crafting, and just killing monsters, as well as the possibility of a few other things that haven't been revealed yet. There's going to be 3 different types of quests in this game: public quests, which I'd assume to be the ones that randomly spawn in the world, area quests, which sound like quests related to a specific area of the game, and quest chains that's outcome is determined by player choice. This is quite exciting for me to hear, as I've always found the most fun quests in MMOs are the ones that give you choices on how to proceed with a certain situation. It's also nice to know that you can level up through means other than questing, such as exploration for example. Before we jump into the PvP and PvE content in this game, let's talk about the world design, player housing, and a few other things related to the setting of Ashes of Creation. So as previously mentioned, this is a completely open world game. You can go from one side to the other without hitting a loading screen. Despite being made in Unreal Engine 4, there will be thousands of players per server. Initially I was unsure of this, as we've never seen a true MMO be developed in this engine before, but in short they're using Unreal Engine 4 purely for its graphical fidelity, with all of the backend being Intrepid Studios' proprietary coding, designed for thousands of players on each server. The world itself will have a medieval Lord of the Rings feel to it, with lots of mysterious artifacts, abandoned cities, and diverse biomes. The game will also have 4 different seasons. Each week that goes by in real life represents one season in-game, so it'd take 1 month for an entire game year to go by, which I think's really cool. Something myself and a lot of people will enjoy about Ashes of Creation is that it's going to have 3 different types of player housing: player-built housing, node housing, and instanced housing. Player-built housing is what you'd assume it to be, a house built by a player. To do this they'll have to gather things like logs, tools, and rocks, find an empty plot of land and build a house. From what I can tell, this will occupy real space in the game world, and players can go on to grow crops outside that house if they choose to be a gathering artisan. Node housing is another form of house that takes up real space in the game world. Instead of building it yourself though, you simply purchase it once the node has reached a certain level. As the node continues to level up, the house will level up with it, eventually becoming a huge mansion at the city or metropolis stage. I'm not too sure how the instanced housing will work, but I'd assume it'd be accessed by going through a portal or something, perhaps similar to how housing in WildStar works for example. PvP in Ashes of Creation will offer content for fans of both small scale and large scale PvP. For small scale, the game will include dueling, an arena system with ladders and competitive rankings, the caravan system I mentioned earlier, and a bounty hunter system in which corrupt players will appear on the map for bounty hunters to track down and kill for a reward. For large scale PvP, there will be sieges for guilds to control nodes and castles which have destructible environments, as well as a guild war system. For someone like me that loves large scale PvP in MMOs, this has me extremely excited. Apparently the maximum guild size will also be around the 300 mark too, so these battles will be bloody huge. Outside of the PvP though, there will be a big emphasis on leveling up your guild. In doing so, you'll get guild specific abilities and other rewards. Something a lot of non-PvP players will be concerned with is griefing, but Ashes of Creation already has a system in place to prevent this from happening to a certain extent. So by default, players will be flagged as non-combatants, the green state. If they attack another player, they become a combatant, the purple state. If the player they attack decides to retaliate, that player also becomes purple. As a combatant, the death penalties are lower to incentivize PvP. However, if a combatant flags and kills a player that's a non-combatant, they will then become corrupt, the red state. Being corrupt basically means you're an outlaw and will appear on the map for bounty hunters to track down. Non-combatants can attack you without becoming flagged themselves, and the death penalties are tripled. Additionally, you will also have the chance to drop the gear you're wearing, and you can't just go around slaughtering green players, as your combat effectiveness becomes less and less the more you kill. There will be mechanics in game that allow you to lose your corruption, but it seems like this system is designed to make people think twice before griefing others. When it comes to the PvE content in this game, it's aiming to provide a bit of everything. Dungeons out in the world, instanced dungeons aimed at group sizes larger than just 5 players, the traditional raids that people have come to love, as well as world bosses that awaken when nodes develop into the later stages. In short, PvE contributes heavily to how the world's built, and PvP is the catalyst for change. This game's all about creation and destruction, with PvE and PvP being yin and yang to how that plays out. Before we wrap up this video, let's talk about the business model for this game, as I'm sure a lot of you will be saying to yourselves at this point, I hope it's not another pay-to-win MMO, and so far things are looking positive in that regard. Ashes of Creation will be a subscription-based MMO costing $15 per month with no box cost. There will also be a cosmetic-only cash shop that allows players to buy costumes without having to grind for them, but that's basically it. There will be no pay-to-win items, convenience items, or any of that other bollocks we've come to hate from free-to-play MMOs. Personally, I think given the current state of the MMORPG genre, sub fee is the only way to go if you want to be taken seriously, and due to Intrepid Studios opting to publish the game themselves, rather than have the business side handled by a third party, I'm confident this will not be a pay-to-win game. Something very unique that Ashes aims to do to incentivize people to bring their friends to the game is implement a referral system in which referring a friend will give you 15% of whatever they spend on sub fees or cosmetics as microtransaction currency that can be put towards your subscription. So if, for example, you bring 6 new players to the game, then that's 90% of your sub fee basically paid for each month. I love the idea of this system as it's a win-win for everyone. The developers can spend less money on marketing and more on developing the game, and the people that refer others to sign up get money off their sub fee. Whilst on the topic of business model, I was curious why, as of making this video, I hadn't heard anything about a Kickstarter for this game, so I asked the game's lead designer Steven if Ashes of Creation has or will have some form of crowdfunding, and this is what he had to say. I think as a developer that wants to self-publish, it only makes sense to do some sort of crowdfunding. Even from a community development standpoint, it's unparalleled. That being said, crowdfunding has a stigma because of bad companies running up with nothing but some concept art and ideas. I wanted to make sure we had at least a year of development under our belt as a studio with a playable game before we went for crowdfunding. At the end of this month, we're going to start crowdfunding. Its primary purpose is to allow our community to get involved early in production with exclusive rewards and packages that allow for alpha access. After that, I also decided to ask how long they've actually been developing the game for, as based on the videos they've released, it looks like a lot has been finished already, and it turns out they've only been working on Ashes of Creation for 14 months, which is extremely fast progress for an MMORPG. Due to this progress, I'm willing to put some of my own money in to help kickstart this game, as it ticks so many of the boxes for my dream MMO, and seems to be in the hands of a team that actually knows what they're doing. Before we end this video, I just want to make you aware of my referral link for this game in the description below. If you sign up to the game through that link, it helps support my channel. This video isn't paid promotion or anything, this is just something that everyone who signs up to the website has access to, so I'm making use of it. If you guys would like to know more about Ashes of Creation, I can arrange a Q&A with the game's lead designer to answer some of your questions, so if that's something you'd really be interested in, then leave your questions in the comments below. If enough of you show interest and there's enough questions, I will make that video. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Hopefully I've given you some kind of hope for the future of MMOs. I know discovering Ashes of Creation has given me a lot more faith, but we'll have to wait and see how it turns out. If you actually made it this far, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my video. I hope you all have a really great day, and I'll see you again really soon.